whether you had a good weekend or a bad one. The one thing we all can't wait to find out is what the numbers look like for next week. Well, wait no longer, because we have them for you. Time to close the door on this week, and let's take a look ahead to next on The Opening Line Show.
5 o'clock here in Las Vegas, the Opening Line Show on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Matt Humans, Sam Panayotovich will go down to the Westgate in just a second. I still think I have to start here. They brought in Hugh Jackson in Cincinnati to solve the Cleveland offense. He couldn't solve it in Cleveland. They thought he'd solve it for the Bengals. And surprise, surprise, 28-7 at the half, and the Browns win again, cover again, 35-20. I know you're stunned that Hugh Jackson didn't deliver.
I didn't know that was the reason they brought him to Cincinnati. I thought they needed an extra equipment manager.
They needed an extra mind because Marvin Lewis and Hugh Jackson had to put their heads together.
You know, Hugh Jackson used to be an assistant coach in Cincinnati, so he does have a relationship with Marvin Lewis. He cannot help you in any way, shape, or form, and I think that the Bengals need to clean house. It's pretty obvious. When the Browns stop a 25-game road losing streak with a blowout win, you have to look at your quarterback, your coach, your entire coaching staff, and say it's time to overhaul this whole organization.
They were up 28-7 at the half, and that was the first time since 1991 the Browns had or the Bengals had given up that many points in the first half.
And, I don't say this to disrespect the Browns because I really think the arrow's pointing up, and this team's going to be on the upswing. I love Baker Mayfield, head and shoulders above the other rookie quarterbacks. But the Bengals, I have not liked the makeup of this team for the last 7 or 8 years. And it's time for dramatic changes in Cincinnati because the Browns are going to blow them away here in the next few years.
Let's go down to the Westgate, bring in Dave Tooley, VSiN.com senior reporter, and the biggest Brown fan that does work here on VSiN, John Murray, Superbook director. Johnny, another ticket winner for the Cleveland Browns. They get it done again, and I know you and Osterman were on them, so cheers to you guys picking Cleveland and cashing another ticket.
Sam, I pick the Browns every week, so, when they cover, I can't really pat myself on the back. You pick the same team every single week, you're going to be right sometimes.
Dave, a lot of dogs cashed in today. How did the underdogs do on a football Sunday here in Vegas?
I just tweeted that out. It was, 6-3 against the spread. I didn't memorize it. Do you have the screenshot for me?
Dave, you're the dog, man. Don't look at me.
No, we don't have that. I'm just looking, Dave, in your Christmas shirt there. You kind of look like Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation.
We did decorate the house this weekend, so my family is a big Christmas time and Halloween too.
Big day for the dogs as we move on to Week 13 in the NFL. Let's start with Thursday night, John. 2 weeks in a row, New Orleans will play on Thursday night. Same with the Cowboys. They played on Thanksgiving. They both play on Thursday night. The game is in Dallas. How big of a favorite are the Saints?
New Orleans is a 7-point favorite in this game, Sam. I mean, we saw some guys taking Dallas +7 right when we opened it up. I think you might see better numbers than that as we get closer to kickoff in this game. The public is going to be all over the Saints. This will be one of the most heavily bet NFL games of the season.
Yeah, this is an interesting number, John. I really thought it would open 7.5 because of the public popularity of the Saints. You're going to see a lot of teaser plays, I assume, on the Saints here.
Absolutely, Matt, yeah.
Once again, John, I'm going to be an idiot here, and I'm going to take the points with the team opposite the Saints. I'll wait for this number to get inflated, 7.5 or 8, and I will take the Cowboys. Is that crazy? Do you think it is crazy to bet against the Saints at this point? They have won. What have they won? 10 in a row, and they've covered 9 in a row.
Well, you're definitely not an idiot, Matt. But, I picked the Eagles against the Saints 2 weeks ago, and Amal Shaw took a shot at me on VSiN for that pick. You got to be careful getting away that Saints runaway train. There may be better places on the board to put your money.
Well, Amal had a perfect handicapping record, actually, on VSiN until he picked Michigan over Ohio State this week.
Yeah, how does a Buckeye guy pick against the Buckeyes when you never get him as a dog either?
Reverse jinx. That's all that is. It's a reverse jinx play.
It is reverse jinx.
I'm calling them all out for that one.
John, where do you think this number does close? Because it opens 7. Are you confident it's not going to go much higher than 7.5 or what?
I don't see it going above 7.5, Matt. I think that the sharp guys are not going to let it go any higher than that. They've already shown us that they're willing to take 7 on Dallas. If it gets to 7.5, 8, they're going to be running with both hands to bet the Cowboys. But obviously the public is going to be all over New Orleans, and you already mentioned it. They're going to be in every moneyline parlay and teaser.
Dave, where do you start when you break this one down? Cowboys getting 7 at home on a short week, right? Well, not maybe a short week. They both played Thursday, so about 7 days for each team. But you get the Cowboys at home, you can get a touchdown, and if you wait, you might get even more, like we said.
Yeah, again, the advanced line was 7.5. I think the public will push it to 7.5. Like John said, though, I don't think it'll go too much higher. But I'm probably going to bite on the home dog too. It's again, it's been very troubling getting in front of these really high-powered teams. But traditionally we've seen in the NFL there is parity. It's just we're not seeing it with these really big spreads.
Saints have covered 9 games in a row. Let's go to Sunday. Colts, Jacksonville. Jags have quit. My God, they lose to Buffalo this weekend. Colts are favored here, John, in Jacksonville. It makes sense because the Jags, they started 3-1. Now they're 3-8. What's the number here?
Colts a 3-point favorite on the road in Jacksonville. The Colts are right there for a playoff spot, guys. Really impressed with them. They snuck that win out today. They cost us quite a bit, though, by doing so. But I'm very impressed with the Colts and Frank Reich.
I am, too. I think the coaching change is obvious here in Indianapolis. You bring in a guy like Frank Reich, and all of a sudden the Colts look like a team with a plan. Some structure, a smart offensive system, and I think that's actually what the Denver Broncos are going to need. I look at a team like the Broncos also in the AFC, Sam. And I don't think talent is the issue with Denver at all. On the offensive and defensive lines are pretty good. They got good skill position players. Case Keenum is good enough to win in the NFL today. He was efficient. That is a poorly coached team. They got tricked on a fake field goal for a touchdown pass. They gave up a 97-yard TD pass. They can't get lined up properly offensively. They were lucky to beat the Steelers today because of some Steelers mistakes. That was the Colts the last couple of years until they made the coaching change. Now you see how much of a difference it makes when you get, like John said, you get a really sharp coach like Frank Reich in there. And the Colts, now that they came back to win that game today, they're at 6-5. Our graphic there said 5-5, but with that win today, they are at 6-5 and only a game and a half back of the Houston Texans. And the Texans are on a 7-game win streak where they've won 4 coin flip decisions. If they start to stumble, watch out. The Colts can win this division.
Any chance, Dave? Any chance you look at Jacksonville? The Waterloo moment, perhaps, or is this ship sailed?
I certainly understand the people that are going to give up on the Jaguars, but I think I'm going to be on them getting a 3.5 at home this week. I do think that Leonard Fournette is running the ball better. I mean, obviously the Jags, losing to the Bills, it's hard to keep a straight face while making an argument for them next week. But I'm not that sold on the Colts. I mean, they were getting beat up pretty bad actually by the Dolphins today. I think they kind of lucked out with the rally.
I see what he did there. Indianapolis lucked out.
Lucked out. Waterloo.
And the Bills aren't that bad, Dave. The Bills aren't that bad. The Bills are very well coached.
Bills are well coached, and John, as you said many times, they have one of the most talented young quarterbacks in the NFL, right? And Josh Allen.
I was on the radio this morning, and the guy I was doing the show with called him the worst player in the NFL, man. Not the worst rookie, not the worst quarterback. The single worst player in the NFL.
Wow. I know who you were talking to, and he was telling me last week that Peterman was better than Josh Allen.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening, Dave.
Yeah.
Wow, that's.
I had a talk with that man as well.
I heard that discussion. I saw the Twitter debate about that. Josh Allen's not the worst player in the NFL. He's not even the worst rookie quarterback in the class. You talked about Waterloo. That was in 1815. Waterloo was a long time ago. So was the Jaguars' Waterloo. That was 2 weeks ago against the Steelers. They're done.
Yeah, they're dead. I think they're dead. I wouldn't go on them, but hey, you get a chance. You get a nice price at home. You'll take it. How about the Panthers? They go on the road, John, to Tampa. I know Carolina's favored.
Panthers at Tampa Bay. Panthers a 4-point favorite on the road in that one, Sammy. And, Carolina, that was a pretty deflating loss for the Panthers today. Could definitely end up costing them the NFC wildcard playoff race.
Where do you start here, Dave? Tampa Bay getting 4 at home. Where do you start with the handicap?
I'm going to have to look at this game a lot more. I was on the Niners against Tampa Bay today, so that kind of caught me off guard how easily they won that game. I was definitely looking to be fading Tampa Bay a lot more coming up here.
I don't know. I talk every week about when you look at the rotation, there are a couple games you will throw out right away. And I can tell you that I will throw out the Panthers-Bucks. That's not a game that's going to be on my short list this week.
Let's move on then. How about the Baltimore Ravens? They get it done today, and they cover against the Raiders. Shocker. Baltimore at Atlanta. What's our number here, Mr. Murray?
Baltimore 3-point favorite. And I got to tell you boys, we could have used a Raiders cover today. I don't know how Baltimore managed to cover those big spreads today, but they did get it done. T-Sizzle, big factor in that cover for Baltimore.
You had a fumble return for a touchdown. You had a punt return for a touchdown. John, what do you make of Lamar Jackson? Because he shows flashes. He can make a few plays. Obviously has a long way to go to be a competent NFL passer. I couldn't believe he was such a big favorite today, but that's disrespect in the betting market for the Raiders. What do you make of Lamar Jackson going forward? He's actually got some, I would say, a favorable schedule. When you look at the teams, the opponents lined up in front of the Ravens, he doesn't have to face any great defenses, so he might be able to get away with being a below-average NFL quarterback right now. What do you believe?
Well, it's hard to tell so far, Matt, because all he's done is played the Bengals and the Raiders,
right,
both games at home. I'm a big fan of John Harbaugh. I believe that John Harbaugh will put Lamar Jackson in a position to succeed. He's obviously got the wheels. He gets by as a passer, but, the Ravens had no business covering the spread today. 2 non-offensive touchdowns got the job done for them. I agree with you, though. Baltimore, they have an easy schedule. As long as they're playing these easy defenses, I think he'll be okay. But when they need to play the big boys in the AFC, they're going to need more in the passing game out of Jackson.
They're going to need a lot more. Dave, when you looked at the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, initially I thought there would be a bet against team with Jackson, but the schedule lined up perfectly for the rookie. He faced the Bengals and the Raiders at home. Next 2 weeks he faces the Falcons and the Chiefs. Then he's got the Bucs at home, then the Chargers and the Browns. So really no great defenses he's got to face down the stretch. I thought he would be, like I said, a bet against quarterback, but that's not really going to be the case, right?
Right, and again, I think John made the best point there about John Harbaugh is going to put him in the best position to succeed. And the Falcons. I'm not going to knock them too much for losing to the Saints, but I've been waiting for them to wake up for a while. But I don't think I'm going to be on them in this game as a home dog.
Last game in our first segment, gentlemen, the Browns at the Texans. Of course, Houston plays Monday night, so this number could go up. It could go down depending on what happens. Cleveland at Houston, though, John. The early line is what?
Houston minus 4.5 at home. I think this game is kind of me versus Dave Tooley.
That's right.
My favorite team, the Browns, against his beloved Texans. Be a great showdown next Sunday. The Browns are a whole new team without Hugh Jackson. It's incredible. Like, as much as I criticized Hugh Jackson, I still didn't believe that they would turn around this quickly after they got rid of him. It's really remarkable.
Also, they got rid of Todd Haley, and I really thought Haley got way too much credit for what the Pittsburgh offense did when he was coordinator there. Look at all the talent on that offense. I really think you could take a drive-through attendant at Wiener Schnitzel and put him at offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, and they would still be atop the league in scoring or near the top. Todd Haley leaves Cleveland. All of a sudden, that offense looks a lot better. You sweep both those guys out the door, Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley, and how much better does this offense look? I don't think it was just Jackson. I think both those guys were the problem. Sam, we have a pretty good tweet here from CBS Sports HQ. Baker Mayfield, in 6 games under Hugh Jackson, he had 8 TD passes and 6 picks. He was 1-4. In 3 games without Hugh Jackson, 9 TD passes, 1 interception, 2-1 record. Like John Murray said, they've won 2 of 3 since Hugh Jackson's been broomed out the door. I also think part of it is Baker Mayfield's just maturing and getting better as a quarterback. And once they get a really good offensive coach in there next year, he's going to get even better.
9-1, 9 touchdowns, 1 pick, and of course, a lot more dangerous, 2-1 as a starter. We'll come back. We'll continue the slate here, the opening line show. Matt Human, Sam Panayotovich, John Murray, Dave Tooley here on VSiN.
This is the Opening Line Show, the first look at next week's pro football lines. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204, watch us online at VSiN.com, and follow us on Twitter at VSiN Live. Welcome back. We give you the information to get the jump on next week's pro football games. Right now on the Opening Lines Show.
Segment number 2, Opening Lines Show here on VSiN. Back to the Westgate in just a moment, but we look at these games we did in segment 1. Matt Human, Sam Panayotovich. Saints at the Cowboys, Colts at the Jags, Panthers at the Bucks, Ravens at the Falcons, Browns at the Texans. Anything jump off the page?
Yeah, we talked about 5 games there. I think 3 games I will put under consideration. One will be the Cowboys plus 7.5. Obviously, the opening number is 7. I think you'll be able to get 7 in the hook this week. I will look at the Cowboys plus 7.5. I'll look at the Falcons actually catching a field goal at home. I don't think Lamar Jackson's good enough here to be a full field goal favorite on the road. And if you watch the Falcons on Thanksgiving night, Sam, you were on the Falcons. I was too. You know, that was really unfortunate what happened. You had Matt Ryan fumble inside the 5, Calvin Ridley fumble at the goal line, Julio Jones fumble inside the 20. They did not play that poorly, and they're about to get Dante Jones back on defense. If that happens this week, they're going to be much better on the defensive side of the football. I like the Falcons as home dogs in that spot, getting 3. I'm not sure that number's going to stay at 3. I think we'll see 2.5. I will also look at the Browns. Depending on what happens Monday night, I'll look at the Browns getting points in Houston.
That Falcons side was so rough. 4 turnovers, 3 inside the red zone.
All right, let's ask John Murray. What was worse on Thanksgiving night, losing with the Redskins or losing with the Falcons?
So I have to say Falcons, Matt.
That was a rough one, including the Julio Jones. Didn't he fumble at the 1? Running into the end zone, and he fumbled, had it stripped.
No, that was Calvin Ridley.
Or Ridley?
Julio Jones fumbled inside the 20.
Oh, yeah, he got spun around in midair and then got hit again.
Yeah, you got 2 fumbles inside the 5, 1 inside the 20. You end up not covering by a point. But if you go back to the Redskins game, you had a missed extra point kick by Washington. You also had a helmet-to-helmet hit that should have been called at the 5-yard line at the end of the game that was ignored by the officials for the first time all season. So, you failed to cover by a point in both cases. Those were both tough beats to take on Thanksgiving night if you played the Dogs.
Yeah, you could have lost 2 games by a 1.5.
Yeah.
Brutal. Let's go to the slate here. This is more games on Sunday, next Sunday, Week 13. Bills and Dolphins, Johnny, in Miami. I know Miami's favored here. Is it a touchdown or a little less?
We got it at 6.5 right now, Sammy, but I think it's right in that neighborhood, 6.5, 7. The Bills are frisky, gentlemen. I like a lot what I see from Josh Allen. He can move the ball with his feet. Passing needs a little bit of work, but I like Josh Allen right now. I love Sean McDermott. Bills are a pretty scrappy ball club.
Scrappy bunch. The Dolphins actually, I think the trends would tell you, if you look at it, the Bills have done a pretty good job of covering in Miami. I might have to look it up in the next day or so, but the Bills tend to cover in the road spot in this division rivalry. I did think with Tannehill back today, the Dolphins looked a lot better, and they're starting to get healthier, and Adam Gase had that team looking good for the majority of that game today. But, Dave, 6.5 looks like a lot to lay with the Dolphins against a pretty good Buffalo defense.
Yeah, I was on Buffalo against sorry, against who they play today? Jacksonville. Sorry.
Welcome to the show, Dave.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I'll be on the Bills this week. I don't think Miami should be favored by that much. Speaking of looking things up, yeah, I did go back and look. I guessed right on the Dogs. We're 6-3 against the spread today. Of course, the favorites were 3-0 on Thanksgiving, so 6-6 for the week, with the Bengals-Browns game being a pick'em.
You can't just stand there in that cool shirt and look like you're the man. You have to pay attention to what we're doing, okay? Okay.
All right, let's go to the next game. The Bears at the Giants. Yeah, shots fired. It's okay. It happens. It's Sunday. We're all riled up. Chicago Bears and the New York Giants. Currently, Johnny, off the board. What are we waiting on here? Trubisky? I'm guessing Trubisky's going to play, but very conflicting reports. Some say he's in, some say he's out. Let's give the scenarios here if Mitch plays and if Mitch doesn't.
I don't think Mitch makes that big of a difference, really. I mean, Chase Daniel looked pretty competent on Thanksgiving. The Bears, 3 extra days to prepare for this game. The biggest thing in this game is Eli Manning going against that Chicago defense. That seems like a disaster for the Giants. I think you're looking at the Bears being around a 4.5, 5-point favorite in this game.
That sounds about right to me. When the Saints went there early in the season,
It was 3, wasn't it? Wasn't it 3 or 3.5?
the Saints were laying 3 in New York. I think at this point we know the Giants are a little worse than we thought at that time. The Bears' defense has picked it up. It's probably not going to be Trubisky, right? Let's say it's Chase Daniel. Does it make much of a difference to you? Is it a point and a half?
No, it doesn't. And we saw that in Vegas when it closed at 3. You know, the line was 4, went down to 3.5, got to 3, but then it never really got – I think globally it got to 2.5. It never really sunk under 2. So Vegas is telling you, offshore markets are saying it's not that big of a deal.
You know, I was on the Giants today +6, and Sammy, you and I both had the Eagles on a money line parlay. That worked out pretty well today. But, John, when I look at the Giants, I don't think they're that bad a team. They got a lot of offensive talent, but I saw 2 things today that the difference between winning and losing in the NFL. One is Pat Shurmur goes for a 2-point conversion after the first score for no apparent reason. They don't get it. Doug Peterson actually goes for 2 to stick it in his face later, and the Eagles get it. So instead of a 20-10 game, it was 19-11. At the end of the first half, Eli Manning threw off his back foot, lobbed one up to the goal line when the Giants could have had a sure 3 points, and it was picked off. Small things like that are the difference between winning and losing. And the Bears are doing those things well, and the Giants right now just not doing what it takes to win. Do you think the Giants at some point after today's loss might get close to a scenario where they pack it in?
Well, Matt, the best thing for the Giants, they don't want to win too many of these last few games.
Right.
They don't want to lower their draft pick, and they certainly don't want to talk themselves into bringing Eli Manning back for another year as a starting quarterback. I think the worst thing for the Giants is to close out strong and talk themselves into another year of Eli. I do think that they should shut it down, look to a quarterback in the offseason, and get a high draft choice, of course.
Dave, Giants haven't been winning games, but they have been covering. I saw 4 of their last 5 games they have covered. You get a team, maybe 4, 4.5, might get to 5. Will you pull the trigger on a dog here?
I don't think so. I think the point made about the Bears defense, I mean, yeah, I can definitely see Eli double clutching, strip sack, fumble return for a touchdown or pick 6. It doesn't look like a safe dog there.
Is Eli Manning going to be scared? He's going to have nightmares of Khalil Mack next week, right? He's that Bears pass rush. You can see Eli when he starts to feel pressure. He grimaces and he starts to crumble in the pocket. He has no interest in getting hit.
And they asked Akeem Hicks, what makes this defense so great? He said, you can't double team anybody.
Right.
Can't double team Khalil Mack, opens up Akeem Hicks. You double team Akeem Hicks, it opens up Roquan Smith or Khalil Mack. They have so many playmakers on that defense in the front.
And if you face a quarterback who's mobile, who can get out of the pocket and move and make plays, that's one thing. But Eli is just going to crumble in the pocket. He's going to have happy feet. He's going to try to get rid of the ball fast. Like John said, this is a bad matchup for the Giants.
Let's go to the Broncos at the Bengals. And this one, Johnny, off the board because it could be Jeff Driscoll at quarterback for Cincinnati. Andy Dalton injured today. Don't know his status for next week. Denver goes on the road to Cincinnati. What could this number be?
Well, from what I saw of that game, I don't know there's a big difference between Dalton and Driscoll. And when I say what I saw of that game, I mean I watched literally every single play of that game because the Browns were playing. So, I think the Broncos probably 3.5-point favorite with Driscoll, with Driscoll. 3-point favorite with Dalton. There's not a big difference here with Dalton and Driscoll. And the Bengals are a team that's just heading down right now. Probably coincided with that assistant coach they picked up.
I agree with them. I would say a 0.5 point might be generous to Andy Dalton. Is there any difference whatsoever?
No. Well, he said Driscoll 3.5, Dalton 3. So maybe a step up from Andy Dalton. And then without A.J. Green, Dave, it's just a different football team. Cincinnati, they look lost without their best receiver.
Well, that's Denver favored, Sammy.
Oh, it's Denver favored. Denver favored in Cincy.
Or minus.
Oh, wow.
Oh, absolutely. With Denver coming off these 2 wins, I think they're definitely favored in this game. A.J. Green likely out for the Bengals. He makes a huge difference to that offense. The Bengals are just in a full-on tailspin right now. They need to clean house. What Matt said at the beginning of the show is 100% accurate.
All right, let's go to the L.A. Rams at the Detroit Lions. This one does have a number on it, and it's north of a touchdown, John. Rams on the road here in Detroit.
We opened at 8.5 on the Rams. We saw some of the offshore books opening 10. We bumped it up to 9.5 on the Rams. Rams will be a very popular teaser money line parlay play, but they really haven't been covering a lot of these bigger point spreads on the road this season. I know they failed to cover as a big road favorite several times earlier in the year.
Yeah, the Rams have not been covering. That's a good point. And actually, I think this is a big number, even though, man, this is a tough one for me because I do think the Rams are going to end up on a ton of teasers this week at 8.5.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be knocking that down to 2.5. I hate to lay numbers like this on the road, and I'm not going to lay these points with the Rams on the road, but I despise betting the Detroit Lions, and that's why this number is at 8.5, right?
You're totally right, too, about those teasers and all those money line parlays. People are going to take that thing down. If it's 9.5, they're going to go down to 3.5. They might even buy the extra point or two for the juice, or the extra half point or two. It's going to be a very popular bet, and we already see it right now. I mean, there are some places in Vegas have it up 9.5, and some global places have 10. So money's going to come in on the Rams. How about the Cardinals and the Packers, John? Seeing Aaron Rodgers here in action Sunday night, so the game is off the board right now. But if he does play, he stays healthy, and the Packers look complacent against the Vikings, what could we see this number at?
We had opened at 14 before this game started. That could be tweaked based on what happens tonight, certainly. From what I saw, the Arizona secondary, I think Philip Rivers completed his first 25 passes today. That bodes well for Aaron Rodgers' chances next Sunday. It'll be another ugly game for the Cardinals.
The Packers figure to be favored in 4 of their 5 games in the month of December. So if they can, pick up a win going into the month, or 4-5-1 going to Minnesota, that would be huge. The only game the Packers won't be favored in the month of December, Sam, you know which game it is. At Chicago. I think it's week 15. And that's going to be Aaron Rodgers as an underdog against the Bears, which he's going to get support in that spot too. So the Packers have a really good shot to win their final 5 games. We saw the scenario two weeks ago, John, when the Dolphins went to Lambeau Field, and the bettors could not stop betting Green Bay. Do you think you're going to have the same scenario here with the Cardinals going to Lambeau? The number's already at 14, so it can't get much higher. But if you watch the Cards today, they get jumped out to a 10-0 lead and got blown out 42-10. Nobody's going to want to bet the Cardinals.
Well, the public will absolutely be on Green Bay, Matt. The difference is going to be this. This game's at 10 a.m., whereas that Green Bay-Miami game you referenced was an afternoon game.
Yeah, good point.
Everybody was running to the window to chase their 10 a.m. losses on the Packers that day. This game's going to be buried in that deck at 10 a.m., so I think there'll be a lot less handle.
And it's one thing, John, you've been all over this year with Green Bay. You don't want to lay points, especially that many points with the Packers. One thing when you could take points or lay 1, 2, or 3, laying 14 with Green Bay, no thanks.
I don't think much of the Packers. I think you guys know that, but that Miami-Green Bay game, that was the game where the score at one point was 28-12 because Green Bay scored 4 touchdowns and Miami kicked 4 field goals. Dolphins forgot the Cardinal rule that day, and it cost them the cover.
Yeah, Packers were 12.5-point home favorites that day. That number was bet up about 3 points, and they won 31-12. And like John always says, kicking is for losers, and the Dolphins kicked field goals that day. I tell you what, the Cardinals – that's a really difficult team to bet. If you watched them again today, and I bet them last week against the Raiders, and I'm still ticked off about that. Josh Rosen really has no idea what he's doing right now, and Steve Wilkes, that's a poorly coached team. The Cardinals are a borderline NFL team right now. It's really embarrassing what they're putting on the field. Yeah,
and they had a chance today. They were up 10-7. They turned over Rivers inside Charger territory deep, and Rosen just
threw a pick.
Yeah, and that's it. And then they got whitewashed from that point. It was 10-7 Cardinals, and the Chargers win 45-10. We did see this tweet, by the way, guys, from Adam Schefter. The initial diagnosis for Melvin Gordon, an MCL injury. Nothing more, nothing less. No sprain, no tear. Just an MCL injury for the Chargers running back. And then the last game, segment 2, Chiefs at the Raiders. Johnny, I know Kansas City will be a massive favorite against the lowly Oakland Raiders.
Chiefs 15-point favorite. I wouldn't be shocked if this thing got even higher as we get closer to Sunday. You guys know the public is going to be all over Kansas City. And the Raiders, they don't want to win any more games. They made that mistake last week. They're much better off losing out and securing that first overall draft choice.
Yeah, the Raiders are kind of a weird team to figure out right now because, like John said, they should be trying to lose. If you're going to be bad, be the worst. And that's how you rebuild to become the best, and you want to get the number 1 pick. John Gruden and Derek Carr celebrated on the sideline when they beat the clumsy Cardinals like they won the AFC championship last week. I mean, what's going on with the Raiders? I think this number, John, could hit 17. The Chiefs are so high-powered offensively, and this Raiders defense has no prayer of stopping the KC offense. I actually was looking at this game last night, and I said this line has got to be 17. And if it's not opening at 17, I think it closes there. What about the chances of this line closing at 17, Chiefs at Raiders?
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, I think there'd be some resistance at 17 from the sharper players, but the public is certainly going to be all over Kansas City. They'll be included in every parlay. We're going to need the Raiders to cover a point spread once in a while around here.
Dave, where do you stand on this one? Kansas City at Oakland.
I kind of lump this in with the other big spreads this week. Back in the day, it was an automatic play for me with the NFL double-digit underdogs. But in today's NFL, 10 points ain't worth what it used to be. The double-digit favorites went 3-0 today, 4-0 if you count the Saints on Thursday night. So I'm going to have to look a lot closer at these double-digit dogs. I'll probably just find one that I really like and just go with that one. It'll probably be the Lions if we are getting the plus 10.
Hey, you got to think a little bit differently about this stuff, right? When the total is 64, a lot of sharps will say, oh, you got to play under 64, and then 105 points are put on the board. You look at the Rams and the Chiefs laying big numbers on the road. The Rams are 1-6 against the spread in their past 7 games, if you count the Chiefs as 3.5-point dogs in that game last Monday. So the Rams have not been covering, but they're laying a big number on the road. Sam, there's no chance I will take the Raiders. You make that number 17, and I still would not even consider taking the Raiders against the Chiefs.
They could lose this game. I mean, they could lose this game 38-7.
Oh, easily.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Would not be surprised. We'll come back. We'll look at the late slate Sunday plus the Sunday nighter, the Monday nighter. It's the opening line show right here on VSiN.
This is the Opening Lines Show, the first look at next week's pro football lines. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204, watch us online at VSiN.com, and follow us on Twitter at VSiN Live. Welcome back. We give you the information to get the jump on next week's pro football games. Right now on the Opening Lines Show.
Second half here on VSiN, opening line show. Matt Human, Sam Panayotovich, live at the Westgate. Dave Tooley and John Murray as we look to the late slate on Sunday, Week 13. Let's start at 105. Jets at the Titans, and this number, of course, will change because we have to wait for Monday Night Football, see what the Titans exactly do. But, Johnny, before you took it down at the Westgate, what was your number? New York at Tennessee.
It was the Titans minus 9.5, Sammy. You know, if the Jets have a chance to cover next week like they did today, I hope they just run it in from the 1-yard line instead of throwing 3 fades into the end zone to try to get that late touchdown. Just awful play calling from the Jets today. Cost us a bundle here at the Superbook. I'm sure that was the case all over the state.
I'll tell you what, the fade pass, one of the worst calls imaginable. When you get down there and you're trying to throw the ball in the corner of the end zone where the throw's got to be perfect, right? The coverage is usually pretty tight. You need a big receiver to go up and make the grab. Last night, I had Hawaii on the money line against San Diego State.
Hell yeah.
College football, okay? Rocky Long goes for 2, which, first of all, is an idiotic move when you're a 17-point home favorite. You have the better team. You want to extend the game. You don't want to go for 2 in the first overtime to say, the hell with it. Let's just end this game. Hawaii's up 31-30. Aztecs go for 2. What do? They run the fade pass to the left corner, and the quarterback throws the ball out of bounds. That is such a bad play call. John's right about that.
It's so difficult to execute it, Matt.
Yeah.
It takes perfect timing from the quarterback and the receiver. It's a very difficult play to execute. I can't believe the Jets didn't just try to run it in one time. Give me one shot on the ground. If you get stuffed, I'll forgive you for throwing a pass on the next play.
That's
John,
outstanding.
how many times have you seen Todd Bowles, when he's down a touchdown or 2, punt from the opponent's 40-yard line?
I was rooting for him to kick a field goal to go down 27-16. At least we would have covered some of the numbers.
That's true.
I wouldn't put it past him.
That was very ugly. Yeah, you had a couple of attempts to cover that in the back door, and the Jets just jetted. That's what they do. They jet. Vikings and Patriots. Let's look at the New England Patriots here. They're going to be in Foxborough, and you look at this AFC playoff picture, John, with the Chiefs losing and the Steelers losing. Patriots are like a half game out of that first round bye, right? They're right there. They might have the number 1 seed by the time the season ends. How big of a favorite are they at home against the Vikings?
Got them up as a 7-point favorite before this Sunday night game kicked off, Sam. And, you know, it's said every year, but it's worth repeating. New England just has such an advantage playing in that AFC East. The other teams in their division are so bad. And it's one of the main reasons why they get a bye every year. They certainly seem headed for another bye this year.
You know, at first glance, 7 looks like a lot of points to give the team as good as the Vikings. But, you know, I'm not a Kirk Cousins guy, and this defense has not played up to, I think, expectations in Minnesota. So, I don't know. I will withhold judgment on this game. But I probably will not be on the Vikings. I'm not a Kirk Cousins guy, and I've been not surprised by his inconsistency this year with Minnesota. He's not a franchise quarterback. He's not a $30 million quarterback. And, John, you're a Redskins guy. You watched him for years in Washington. He's the same guy now he's been for the Redskins the past few years, right?
To me, there's not a whole lot of difference between Cousins, Smith, McCoy. I don't think there's that big of a difference between those 3 guys, man. I know people will think I'm crazy for saying that, but no, Kirk Cousins is not a $30 million a year quarterback. He's not playing as well as Case Keenum did for the Vikings last year.
Dave Tooley, when you start to break this one down, where do you start? New England, Minnesota.
I think I probably will be on Minnesota if they get out of the game against the Packers with a win. I think maybe it might be demoralizing. Their season might be over if they lose that. But I think if we see a good effort on Sunday night, I think this team can play. I mean, you know, again, we saw the Jets pretty much play with the Patriots today. So I think you know, Patriots are going to be just trying to get out with another win, and I think the Vikings can stay within the number.
Yeah, depending on the results Sunday night, if the Vikings lose to the Packers, they're going to have about a 20% chance to make the playoffs. If the Packers lose tonight, they'll have about a 15% chance to make the playoffs. The team that loses tonight, I really think it's kind of a demoralizing loss. In that case, if the Vikings lose, I do not want anything to do with them when they go to Foxborough next week.
And I'm looking at this Patriots schedule here. Murray called it the next 5 games. So they play Minnesota. From there, at Miami, tough game at Pittsburgh. But then at home, they wrap it up with the Bills and Jets at home. Must be nice, Johnny. Must be nice.
They're going to have a bye again, Sammy. I mean, they're a great team. Belichick and Brady, one of the great duos in the history of the league. But you can't tell me it doesn't help them in terms of seeding every year to play in that AFC East. Of course it helps them.
Another big spread. We look at Seattle at home, and they are rolling right now. Seattle at home against the San Francisco 49ers, John.
Seattle a 10-point favorite in this game. Pete Carroll has done an outstanding job in Seattle this season. Russell Wilson's playing great. On the other side, is Kyle Shanahan on any kind of a hot seat? I mean, I know he lost his quarterback, but, I mean, that was a terrible loss to Tampa Bay today. I think the Niners are 2-9 now. I know they lost Garoppolo, but still a very, very bad year for the 49ers.
No, I don't think he's on the hot seat because he is obviously the hand-picked coach for, what's his name, the GM? Sorry.
John Lynch.
John Lynch is hand-picked coach. And, you know, the injuries have really sabotaged the San Francisco 49ers the last 2 years. You've got to give Shanahan one more year, see what he does in year 3 before you start talking about a hot seat. But you're right about Pete Carroll. He's done a phenomenal job, and that was a big win for the Seahawks. When you look at the NFC playoff picture, that was a huge win for Seattle at Carolina.
And you're looking at good teams winning and great teams covering. So Seattle, Dave, 6-5 straight up. But depending on where you got your numbers, they could be 8-4 against the closing number. So they do cover, and they saved their season today, like Matt said, with a win. Seattle's very well coached. Are you going to go against Seattle, Dave? You going to take the 10?
Again, this is another one that I'm going to lump in with those other double-digit dogs I was looking at. I don't think I'm going to be. Again, I was on them today against the Buccaneers, and yeah, that was just a very disappointing performance. I mean, I hate to think that I'm going back to giving Mullins, so much credit for the blowout of the Raiders on that Thursday night game. But yeah, he hasn't been the same since then. And yeah, they came out with nothing today on both sides of the ball.
Think about what Nick Mullins and the Niners did to the Raiders on that Thursday night game, and what do you think Patrick Mahomes is going to do to the Raiders?
I know. It's a home game, too. It's a home game. And you can get a team in the NFL, guys, at home getting 15, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. You would never say that, You'd never say that ever, but that's where we are. Last game on Sunday nighter. This will be the Chargers at the Steelers. And the Chargers rolled over the Cardinals. The Steelers in a bounce-back spot here, John, at home. What are they laying against Phillip Rivers?
Pittsburgh a 3.5-point favorite in this game, Sammy. Make a case. I thought coming into the year these were the two most talented teams in the AFC. Seems like I underestimated the Chiefs, clearly, but there's a ton of talent on both of these teams. The Chargers with Bosa back. Pittsburgh's got all those playmakers on offense. Should be a great game.
Yeah, I actually like the Steelers a little bit in this spot off that loss in Denver today. 4 turnovers, made a lot of mistakes, really gift-wrapped that game for the Denver Broncos, so I think they bounce back at home here. 3.5 is the right number, though, because you got to put that hook on there or you would get an avalanche of Pittsburgh action. Chargers are good enough that at 3.5, I think you get balanced action. Dave, would you look at the Chargers side?
Yeah, I liked it better. The advance line was 4.5, but I mean, I certainly understand the adjustment off of the Steelers loss and the Chargers win today. I mean, the Chargers, I think are very live here as the dog. They have played better on the road. And again, they're back in the dog role that we prefer them in.
Steelers, I had them today. They were my last ticket in the Westgate. I was 2-2. Mm-hmm. I knew in the first quarter, I'm like, they're not covering. They had the blocked field goal, 0-0.
Oh, yeah.
They had the fumble inside the end zone. They hit off the pylon. They're down 3-0. They score what looked like a touchdown. They fumble it. It's a touchback. And then James Conner in a 17-17 game, he's running wide open, 20-yard line of Denver, and just fumbles it. And
4 turnovers. Big mistakes.
It was one of those games, though, you knew right away. I said it in the first quarter. I said, Pittsburgh's not covering this game.
I think the Steelers, like John Murray said, are as talented as really any team in the league. And you look at the Super Bowl futures odds right now, 7-1, 8-1. Steelers might be worth a play. But once again, as John indicated, all roads go through Foxborough, if you're trying to get to the Super Bowl, because the Patriots just have an easier path to getting home field advantage in the AFC.
Last game on the slate, guys. Week number 13, we've got the Redskins and the Eagles. NFC East, Monday night. Philly at home. I guess they saved their season today with a win over the Giants. What's Philly laying against Washington, John?
Sam, I think Philadelphia did save their season today. We opened them as a 6.5-point favorite, quickly moved it up to 7 on the Eagles. Redskins 3 extra days to prepare for this game, but they're a pretty banged up football team. I can see why the Eagles are a full touchdown favorite here.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I'm not going to even give a lean out on this yet because I like the Redskins a lot on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys, and I really felt like that was the right side the whole way. Colt McCoy had one really critical turnover in that game. Otherwise, the Redskins played well. And if you look at the Eagles, I think they have covered, one of their past 5 home games? They have not been covering at home, let alone winning. They were lucky to beat the Giants today.
Yeah, their secondary, Dave. You look at that Philly secondary; they're on to their backup corners. So it's tough to lay points with the Eagles. And if what Murray says is true, that there's not much of a drop off between Smith and McCoy, Dave, I'm going to guess you're going to lean to the dog here with the points.
Yeah, especially with the 7. It's at 6.5. I think it's easier to pass on that. But getting the insurance of the 7 for a push makes me feel better with the dog there.
All right, that does it for the NFL slate. We'll come back. Matt Human, Sam Panayotovich. We'll tag in Dave Tuley, John Murray one more time. We've got some college football lines for the championship games, conference championships right around the corner. We'll tackle those next here on VSiN.
This is the Opening Lines Show, the first look at next week's pro football lines. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204, watch us online at VSiN.com, and follow us on Twitter at VSiN Live. Welcome back. We give you the information to get the jump on next week's pro football games. Right now on the Opening Lines Show.
Couple minutes left here. Opening Line Show on VSiN. Matt Human, Sam Panayotovich. We go back to the Westgate one more time on our show. Dave Tuley, John Murray standing by, DaveVSiN.com, and John, the Superbook director at the Westgate. Guys, we're on to the College Football Championship weekend. I can't believe we're already here in what looks like a pretty nice slate for a lot of action here. We'll go with the power conferences mostly. Pac-12 championship game. It is Friday night. And, Dave, I see Washington -5.5 against Utah. Utah without their quarterback and their running back, but still only getting 5.5. Where do you start here?
injuries obviously make this a little out of whack. Where I was thinking this game would be closer to pick 'em, but I can understand Washington being favored considering those injuries. But I can't believe you're skipping the MAC championship game with my alma mater, Northern Illinois, getting 3.5 against Buffalo.
Well, I guess we have to go there now, right? It wasn't on my rundown, but we can do it. Let's do it. Northern Illinois.
Make sure you do everything in rotation order. Okay?
I know. You got it. You know, Dave will fire an email off at you. All right, Dave, go ahead. Caesars and South Point and Westgate have about 3.5. Buffalo minus the 3.5 against your beloved Huskies.
Yeah, although now that I mentioned that, I do have Buffalo 15-1 to win the MAC in the future. So I'll actually be playing NIU as a hedge plus the 3.5 in this game.
So not a true handicap. Perfect. Just a hedge. Let's move back then. Johnny, when you see Washington, you had Washington.
This is what it's all about.
That's true. Johnny, you had Washington against Wazoo. You took the 3 with the Huskies. Where would you look in this game, Pac-12?
You know, I disagree with Dave, Sam. I thought this line would be closer to 7. You know, why that Washington, a very impressive win on Friday over Washington State. Looked like they're clearly the best team in the Pac-12. I thought this would be a little bit higher than what it came. Saw some offshore books at 4.5 on this game. I thought it would be more like 6, 6.5, and maybe even as high as 7.
Big 12, John, you're the Big 12 guru. Let's go Texas, Oklahoma. Sooners laying 7.
Well, I'm no guru, Sam, because I thought this one would be a little cheaper than this. The way Texas has been playing, I thought this was going to be more like a 5-point spread. Oklahoma's offense is incredible, and you can't block against them, Matt. If you block against Oklahoma, they call penalty, and they bring the play back. We learned that on Friday night in the West Virginia game.
Yeah, that was still a head-scratcher. That was a mysterious call against the Mountaineers that put the Sooners in the Big 12 championship game. John, how do you handle Oklahoma as an odds maker? Because you said their offense is incredible, but their defense is far from it. The first time these teams met, Sooners were 7.5-point favorites, and they lost 48-45 in Dallas. The total in this game looks like it's going to be 78 or 79.
Yeah, I'm not really somebody that's going to want to bet the under in any game involving Oklahoma. You know, I make some jokes about that holding call, but the fact of the matter is Oklahoma's offense is incredible. They have a lot of talented playmakers on their defense. I don't know why their defense is so bad. There's playmakers there. But, you know, I think that Oklahoma should be a smaller favorite than this, but they're certainly rightfully favored. And I'm sure the Big 12 is going to want them to win and potentially get one of their schools into the college football playoff.
Clemson laying 25 to Pitt in the ACC. In the Big 10, Ohio State minus 14 against Northwestern. We saved the best for last. We got about a minute left, guys. Alabama minus 13.5 against the Georgia Bulldogs. Dave, what do you got here?
No thanks on Pittsburgh after saying, you know, how Miami of Florida ran over them. I'm not going to take them against Clemson. Northwestern, I think could be a thorn in Ohio State's side there and keep that game close, especially if the Buckeyes have a little bit of a letdown.
Alabama, Georgia. What do we got? What do you guys got on Alabama, Georgia? Let's get to the big game here.
Matt, I don't think the always classy Urban Meyer would run up the score in Northwestern, so I like Northwestern. Alabama, Georgia, I'll say Alabama. I'm not getting in front of Alabama anymore this year. Give me the Crimson Tide.
That's John.
I thought that number was too short.
John Murray, Dave Tooley, live at the Westgate every week here on the Opening Line Show on VSiN. Gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you Saturday and Sunday live from the Westgate.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
It's Dave and John for Matt.